Coming up today on Locked On at Texas Tech, we got a 1,000-yard rusher to celebrate this season, but who is next in line after Tahj time? Also getting set for the Red Raider debut of Tech men's basketball head coach Grant McCasland next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. And thanks as always to those making us their first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets, guaranteed. So make every moment more by visiting FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Great to see you again, Chris. We're, of course, looking ahead to Red Raiders and Jayhawks, which we will get to shortly. We're also going to look even a little beyond into the future after 2023 on a couple of different fronts. And looking ahead to tonight from United Supermarkets Arena. If you feel the vibe in the air, it's a game day. The official debut of new Red Raider men's basketball head coach Grant McCasland as they host Texas A&M Commerce. So we'll get to that before we are done. We'll hear from Coach McCasland on the opponent tonight. We've been talking a lot of Kansas, and we'll get back to it before the week is done. We've already got into it quite a bit here this week, Chris, and I wanted to somewhat take a bigger picture view of what is coming up down the road to kick off today's show, because something else that has been discussed this week, and you might have seen some accolades rolling out for one, Tahj Brooks. Individually having a prolific statistical season and as good a one as we've seen in the better part of a decade, going back to the DeAndre Washington era, that has been a barrel of fun. I've enjoyed every bit of that. I hope we get a lot more of it before the season is done. But, Chris, I do have to say beyond that, from a ground game perspective, we haven't seen a ton of depth develop at all. Since Cameron Valdez has gotten a little healthier, I think he has flashed a little bit more consistently. Can he develop into a primary ball carrier or a feature guy in the future? That's still a question left to be determined. But I am here this morning thinking about what life could look like after Tahj Brooks. And I got to tell you, it's not lost on me with the transfer portal opening up in just a few weeks, wondering whether or not this could be an objective on that list, because it is, in a lot of ways, the straw that is stirring the offensive drink for Texas Tech this season. I got to tell you, there are a lot of question marks for me as a fan personally about what it's going to look like next season. So where do we begin that conversation? And I guess where's your where's the needle as far as how you're feeling about the future of this spot as a fan and someone who obviously keeps an ear to the ground with what's coming down the recruiting pipeline as well?
I mean, odds are here. There's a few things that I believe to be true. Whether they're ultimately will be true, I guess we'll see. But this is what I believe at this point. I believe Tahj Brooks has 3 or 4 games left as a Red Raider, and that would be it. I mean, this is just my opinion, but he would have if you make it to a bowl game, I mean, he would have a decision to make. He's kind of would be in that camp, whether. I don't want to put that on him. He may be like, absolutely, I'm going to play in that bowl game. But I mean, he would have potentially a decision to make about, because a lot of guys are starting to kind of entertain that or advised it, whatever. And Tahj is so teammate oriented and team oriented and all those things and school oriented that I'm just throwing that out there because I think that's kind of where his future is. Because I do think that he's going to finish up his career this year, even though he's got 1 year left. And I also believe to be true that maybe you're whoever may get a lot of carries on your team isn't on your team yet.
Yeah.
And that you may go back to more of a shared carries. I don't know if there's anybody out there or anybody on your roster or in the pipeline that is ready to be handed the ball 31 times, on most Saturdays. I don't think that is there.
That's a short list nationally, man. Good grief.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And because you've shared carries in most years in the last decade or plus. And I think you'll kind of go and it creates some development. It benefits everybody, but also there's just not many people built like Tahj that can handle it. So as we look at that position, what you have right now is you've got Cameron Valdez. My concern about Cameron Valdez is that, he hasn't been able to prove his durability. I think that when you see him, you see the juice a bit and the flash, but it's in spurts. There's not a lot of I don't know if the right word is consistency. I think that's what he would be working toward. Is can he do this game in and game out, week in and week out, all those kinds of things. And can he add a little bulk to where he can play the position at a full-time basis? Because right now you're really just asking him to carry the ball when he comes in. I think the bulk of on pass protection plays and just, all the different things that you're asking Tahj to do. I just don't know if and I think, Nehemiah Martinez will be back. I think he can handle that part, but I think that, he's just not as much of a natural running back. He's a good football player. And so those are the two guys that have been getting the reps. The Bryson Donnell is right there, and he's been playing some special teams, and I just don't get the sense that he's just the next big thing. I think what you'll hear is there's two names. One is redshirting, and then one is not here yet. There's two names, and part of this is because of their size. Anquan Willis from Wichita Falls Rider, who went to the same school as Jacob Rodriguez, was kind of a linebacker, running back type guy. And he missed most of his senior year because of a knee injury. When he came in here, the thought was, let's start him out at running back. If it doesn't work, we'll move him to linebacker, but he's a good football player. I mean, it's very similar to Jacob Rodriguez, actually, who's got a lot of different positions in his background. But at the end of the day, he's just a damn good player. But Anquan Willis, I think, really impressed Kenny Perry. I think he's thick. He's 200 pounds plus. He's 5'10". He's just got, I think Kenny Perry has said he's got like a neck like a Rottweiler. So he's built really like a running back. And I think that intrigues them. I think he's got some natural vision. And the other one that is not yet here that I think because of his size is Cameron Dickey, who is committed to you. And I don't know if Cameron Dickey is an early enrollee or not, but he is somebody that I think there's some, you'll talk to people that'll go, oh, he's different compared to what we've got here. He's different than what they've got there. And depending on who you visit with, but his size is what allows him to be. But to circle back, portal may happen. Yeah, you may go get an older guy that can handle all the physicality of the position. You may not ask him to carry it a bunch. It may not be some flashy addition, but yeah, I would not rule that out at all, especially if Tahj does indeed forego his last year of eligibility.
Well, and you end right where I wanted to continue. I don't want to put the cart before the horse as far as eligibility decisions are concerned. I don't mean to rule out another year. I just can't fathom, given the production that he's had this year, where I think his stock is within the scope of his career so far. I just can't imagine that you wouldn't try to cash that in as soon as you have the opportunity. So many things can change, whether it's health or just production or whatever it might be in another year. And man, he's had a fantastic season. Individually, where do you think he ranks just in the last, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 years? I know you've had some award winners. You've had some big-time ball carriers. You've had some back-to-back 1,000-yard rushers. We're not exactly in the era of a great offensive line either, which is another kind of bonus point for Brooks. But where does he kind of fit into this class that he's going to wind up with statistically a very accomplished Tech running back?
He is because I don't think people really grasp how good SaRodorick Thompson was career-wise with his numbers, with what he did here. And he
top
was
10
always
scorer, right? I think all-time top 10 TD scorer.
Top, of all time. Yeah, I think he's somewhere, I don't know, 5th, 6th, 7th, somewhere in that. I think he finished his career with like 35, 36 touchdowns or something like that. And so that's what Tahj doesn't have. Tahj doesn't have a lot of the the scores, and you know, and SaRodorick never had the ability to kind of have all the carries in any of those given years. And SaRodorick has his issues with being able to stay healthy and durable and all those things too. But I think Tahj fit. You know, we haven't seen the end yet, but I think he fits in. He fits into an upper tier class of running backs here, but like those guys, like if you go back 30 something years or whatever, like, you know, the Bam Morrises, the Byron Hanspards, the Ricky Williamses,
Doak Walker award winner guys.
Yeah, some of those guys are just different than what you're talking about here. The one thing you wish you could give him is the ability, because like what you're seeing with Oklahoma State and Ollie Gordon, he's got the ability to get the ball and like he's gone.
Go.
I mean, adios. And Tahj that's just not what his God-given abilities were. But like running in between the tackles, breaking tackles, the pass protection, all those things, he's elite at that. But you just want to sprinkle a little game-breaking speed into his game if you could. But he is really good as it is.
Man, it's been a sight for sore eyes and a lot of fun to watch this year. So we can only say thank you, Tahj, and we'll enjoy the rest of whatever you got to give in red and black. And then, yes, we'll be dialed in very, very closely for developments with that position moving forward, like, you know, immediately, maybe December 1, because it's not a blank slate, but there's a lot of help wanted, I think, hanging out in that position room right now as far as the future is concerned.
And inexperienced.
Yeah.
It will all be.
What a segue, because I want to talk about the opposite of young and inexperienced. How about decorated, seasoned, veteran? Let's continue the Red Raider football conversation on the other side of the line of scrimmage and actually taking it to the coaching staff, because when you've got a guy like Tim Deruyter on your staff, you have to wonder every offseason about phone calls he might get from other potential suitors. And I've already seen him mentioned on one prominent radar so far this season as far as openings this offseason. Let's get to that coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech. First, today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks, the most exciting way to test your skills and play daily fantasy sports, and a great way to add juice to any game, anytime. And if you've got the game, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and a giant selection of players, projections, and stat categories are just part of what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. That's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, right now, PrizePicks is going to match your first deposit up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDONCollege at prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Daily fantasy sports made easy. On Texas Tech, a part of your day. Hope you're subscribed on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. We're going to get into a hoops conversation coming up in just a moment as we're looking ahead to the debut of Grant McCasland as the Red Raider men's basketball head coach tonight from United Supermarkets Arena, if you're dialing us up on a Wednesday. But first, let's wrap up our football conversation, actually taking it to a coaching staff conversation, Chris. When we talk about Tim Deruyter, we're talking about obviously a long-tenured guy in college football, decorated, has achieved a lot. He is not an unknown, very much a known commodity as far as defensive circles are concerned. So he may be someone that's getting a phone call from somewhere, I don't know, every offseason just because of some of those reasons. But I did see him mentioned now with a vacancy popping up there in LA on the West Coast. I saw Deruyter mentioned here and got my attention because as far as hires under Joey McGuire, Tim Deruyter has been one that I've spent about, 0 seconds wondering whether or not it was a good fit. I think you've gotten so much good out of Tim Deruyter on that side of the football in a fairly short amount of time. So he's a guy I want to keep in West Texas for an extended period of time. How do you respond yourself when you see something like this come out? Is it more regular than maybe we know about, but it doesn't just get reported as prominently sometimes? Because I know this guy is a dude that a lot of people would love to have on their staff.
Yeah, I think Tim is very happy here. He's I don't know how many more years, and I say that it's not like he's old, I don't know how many more years he will coach. And in other words, I don't know how much more moving around he would want to do. I think he's kind of been the coordinator, then he's been the head coach. Now he's been the coordinator again. And I think he's, and he's got, I think the reason he's listed on what you're talking about with USC, I think Bruce Feldman, I saw some other people have gone that route too. He's got a lot of West Coast ties. He spent some time at Fresno State, spent some time at Cal. And so there's some West Coast ties and things like that. And, but who knows what Lincoln will decide to do, as a defensive coordinator. I mean, I don't know if you go old and experienced or if you go young and, whatever it may be. But yeah, you want your coordinators, mentioned for other jobs. I mean, Mississippi State went after Zach Kitley last year. I think, when you got Tim Deruyter, it kind of turned some heads. They're both paid fairly well. I mean, I think coordinator salaries are getting pretty crazy, and I think USC would be a school that could pay whatever it took if that's what was enticing. I mean, that's going to be where you see the Big Ten and the SEC really start to flex a little bit, is when it comes to you think we can't talk to your coach? Well, watch how much we can write a check for, and then like some of these other leagues will just be like, we can't match it, but it spills down to assistants and all those kinds of things. Tim's, their defense right now, I think, and I think I'm right on this. I think total defense and scoring defense are both 68th in the country. I think you're giving up, about 25 points a game. You're giving up about 375 yards a game. Probably hasn't been what everybody would hope this year, like a lot of things. You haven't taken the ball away enough and all that, but he is experienced. He does run good defenses. I think he's able to develop and all those things. And I've been doing this way too long, and I'm not naive to think that your staff doesn't come back intact year to year to year. It just is very rare. And you almost had that last year before the Emmett Jones, scenario dropped in your lap when he left to Oklahoma. And so he did to Texas Tech what he had done to Kansas the year before. And so that was the one hiccup. But I mean, do I think Tim Deruyter is going to be the next DC at USC? No. He was on a list of about 8 to 10 guys, but that's Bruce Feldman's kind of knowledgeable, who's hot, who's got ties. And then, then there obviously is the reality of what Lincoln Riley would ultimately want. So that's a big hire though for the Trojans. They can't screw that one up, or Lincoln may not, survive the big picture if they make the wrong choice there.
I've loved having Coach Deruyter in Lubbock. I think he's brought a lot of great things to that side of the football for the Red Raiders. We hear so much talk and attention paid, deservedly so, to some of these guys offensively that are coming down the recruiting pipeline. Is there excitement to be found on the defensive side as far as some future guys that are signed up there that maybe we haven't heard about as much?
I think a lot of excitement you have defensively, though, you're seeing it firsthand every Saturday right now, because I think that they've probably have played more true freshmen or redshirt freshmen than they would have thought going into the year out of necessity, and because I think these guys kind of kick the door in a little bit. I think, Brendan Jordan Sanford, Chapman Lewis, we documented those guys a lot in August. They've all played, especially the two Jordans. They've played a lot more than I think we would have thought. Dylan Spencer is also, played a ton. I think you're starting to see them now kind of rotate through some of these linebackers that are getting their 4 games in so they can maintain their red shirt, like your John Currys. We saw Mike Dingle. I think, there's a young man out of Louisiana that Justin Horn, sorry, I couldn't think of his name, that they have decided to kind of let him play some special teams. Marcus Ramon Edwards is a red shirt right here in Lubbock that I think they're very, very excited about it. He's somebody that is tailor-made for that star position. So, yeah, there is – Amir Washington was a D tackle that nobody's remembers his name really, but he's kind of been suiting up and kind of been – maybe sneaking in a little bit there. He's a defensive tackle. So, yes, the answer is there's quite the nucleus of youth, and now all of a sudden it's got some experience to it. It's not, you know, when the season ends, we're not going to go, none of these guys have done it. No, they've all been involved at some level. And I'm most excited about those middle linebackers because, like, Ben Roberts is a name. He's a redshirt freshman, but I mean, unbelievable year that he has had.
Out of nowhere. I mean, not even somebody on the radar. Speaking of radars, coming into the year and has stepped up to the opportunity. And yeah, if not for redshirt considerations, some of these guys that we're, I guess, not going to see, guys like Mike Dingle, I'd love to have out there on the field right now. I mean, I think he's become one of your best 15 or certainly 22 on the defensive side as far as the first and second string. So excited about that and hadn't really considered it. I'm thinking more like, all right, who's going to show up on campus in the future? But yeah, it's already shown up in a lot of ways. Maybe not how you draw it up, but some encouraging results. We're hoping for.
And I did say Ben Roberts, didn't I?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I was making sure that I
see the drool. I was salivating over that. I think to wrap up.
But I'm just looking up. I was like, man, and I'm like, I think he's a redshirt freshman. But I'm like, man, that's crazy, you know. But yeah, I just looked it up to be sure. But yeah, absolutely, he's got it all in front of him, and that's been one of the brightest spots of the entire season for you, in my opinion. And it came out of nowhere, like you said.
All in front of him. Also could be applied to our final conversation, the debut of Red Raider men's basketball head coach Grant McCasland. We're getting to the hardwood next. We'll hear from Coach McCasland and get ready for tonight's opponent, Texas A&M Commerce from United Supermarkets Arena. It's coming up next on Locked On Texas Tech. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook of Locked On. And fall is in the air. Helmets are on heads. Briskets are on smokers. And the action is with America's #1 sportsbook. And there's never been a better time to join in on that action than right now, because new FanDuel customers can bet only $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. So dive in and join in on the fun with FanDuel by downloading their safe, secure, and easy-to-use app where you can bet on all things under the sports sun. And when you're a winner, you're always paid instantly with FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon and sign up today to bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed with FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. On for the ride on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network with Chris. I'm Casey. Before we are out of here, switching gears and hitting the hardwood, Texas Tech Hoops is opening up their regular season from United Supermarkets Arena coming up tonight. Tonight being Wednesday, it is the debut of Red Raider head coach Grant McCasland and Texas A&M Commerce, fitting the description of the first potential victim on the opponent. Let's take a listen real quick to Red Raider head coach Grant McCasland.
They're physical. They play really hard. We've played against his teams in the past. They just have a way of competing, and it's kind of the way Jarrett played. He's just tough. And so I would anticipate them being an aggressive team, that they'll push tempo and play hard. And we're going to have to share the ball and take care of the ball in order to be good. And I do think our advantage will be around the rim. How do we not panic and get good shots against them? Because I do think we'll have the opportunity to score. It's just how do we want to score and being able to recognize that. But they're going to be a quality opponent, and we anticipate a really tough physical game.
A&M Commerce is somebody that is transitioning into Division I. They've still got 3 or 4 more years left of this process, so they can't really go to the tournament or anything like that. They are, second year in the Southland Conference and all that. They've got, they'll be okay. I think this is more about, Grant wanting to see what his team can do in front of fans and their own fans. And, the guys lose their minds. The guys still shoot it well. Do we make the right play? Because I'm part of the telecast tonight, and one of the things that I'm kind of fascinated on is, like, every coach has their things that they're really big on, and like they're non-negotiables, if you will, that they just don't bend on, and like they're really gonna hammer on a daily basis, almost the point where if you're playing in the program, you better like adapt to this particular point or points, or just give up because this place isn't for you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But one of his big deals is the body language and not getting down after a missed shot, after a turnover, after a whatever. He's huge on the next play, to the point where when the head drops with somebody, or somebody just looks like, okay, man, it's just not my day, he stops practice, and like they're going to spend time discussing this. He just doesn't let it slide. But in a game, you can't call a timeout every time that something like this happens when one of his guys. Now, I don't know how much adversity that they'll face tonight. I expect A&M Commerce to fight you a little bit. How about this? This is the week for A&M Commerce, though, by the way. This is what they woke up to on Monday morning. Monday, College Station, Texas. Wednesday, Lubbock, Texas. Friday night, Rupp Arena to take on the Kentucky Wildcats. So that's a road trip. Hello.
Kind of anticlimactic, though, when you've had the Aggies and Red Raiders already in the week.
Yes. Yeah,
wow.
But
interesting 7 days.
This will be I'm just fun to kind of watch it get kicked off, and excited about it. To be just fun to see kind of Grant, do his thing and kind of start his tenure there. I think coaches are about fit. I think Joey's a perfect fit for what Texas Tech needs for their football coach. And I think you'll see very similar situation with Grant. I mean, he loves it here. This was one of the 2 spots I think he would have done anything to be a part of. And he's got degrees from both places. I don't see Scott Drew leaving Baylor anytime soon, as they win a big one last night versus Auburn on national television. Yeah, it'll be fun to – and I'm going to watch the big fella. You hear Grant talk about advantage being around the rim. Warren Washington got credit. We talked about this for a lot of the threes that you made versus A&M in that scrimmage. But against UTEP, he attacked the rim quite a bit. I think had 7 dunks maybe in that scrimmage versus UTEP, which was nobody was allowed in it. But that word has gotten out about that. But, I mean, your advantage around the rim starts with deep-voiced Warren Washington, who he's like Barry who am I thinking of? Barry White. Yeah. There you go.
I'm getting like, this is kind of a bizarre start to the season as a fan for me, because I'm like getting drunk on the theory of transitive properties. You did so many things so well in that exhibition against the Aggies, and they're supposed to be a good team. I really haven't ever entered an opener just against, Tom, Dick, or Harry feeling like, man, I really want to see these things continued. I want to see these things sustained. But I'm sort of feeling that. I'm not trying to be too ambitious. It is game 1. But it's kind of a bizarre and seeing something so fun and encouraging against what should be a decent team going into the season. I haven't really felt like that before coming into a year. And, hey, by the way, this is game 1 for your head coach. So it's been an interesting kind of little path here over the last 10 days. To get to this point. So I'm excited to see what it looks like, man. And we'll have Chris Level back on a call. So always excited to have you on a call.
Yeah, well, for some odd reason they keep asking me back. I'll keep,
the people's champ.
Yeah, I'll keep doing it. But yeah, man, Warren and Darian didn't score in that game. You got crushed on the glass. I think you gave up way too many points in the paint. Your defense just overall wasn't good. You fouled too much, and yet you beat what I think is absolutely an NCAA tournament team. There is a long list of things that I know Grant wasn't necessarily pleased with or felt like, okay, you need to get improved at. But, I mean, when your guards score it like they did, I mean, Pop went for 30, Chance McMillan went for 17. Joe Toussaint dropping dimes everywhere, had 7 assists. I mean, yeah, there was a lot to like, but the most important thing was a win. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter. It doesn't count. Right. Tonight does.
It was still real to me, damn it. Game 1 coming up from United Supermarkets Arena. We'll recap for better or worse coming up on the other side. And, of course, continue to get you ready for Red Raiders and Jayhawks. Chris, appreciate the time as always. I know it gets even more valuable this time of year as Chris is pulling double duty, but always appreciate you, man. And we'll see you again tomorrow.
Absolutely, man. Looking forward to it. We'll talk to you tomorrow and break down what went on versus the Lions of Texas A&M Commerce.
That's right. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you don't miss it. And we hope to see you right back here for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.